Hello and welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. And today we have a very special episode. We will be talking about Solo, the latest Star Wars story. But before we get into that, let me introduce my awesome co-host, Mr. Kyle Nash. How's it going, Kyle?
You know what, Demos? I got a really good feeling about this.
So I saw it a couple of days ago. I put up my review if you want to check it out on hilaritybydefault.com. Kyle, you literally just got back from it. What did you think?
First of all, I want to make sure everybody knows that they can catch your awesome reviews on hilaritybydefault.com because selfish promotion is what you do on your own show. Just throwing that out there. And it's even
by
better.
Default.
Exactly, by default. And it's even better when you have some lackey co-host say it for you. It's beautiful. Not that we've experienced anything like that here on this show, but I just thought we should make that happen. Anyways, listen, man. I got to tell you, going into this production, watching this particular movie, I was very trepidatious. I was ready to in fact let Jim off the hook for all the smack I talked on having to cover Ready Player One, because I wasn't looking forward to that. I'm looking less forward to this going into this experience when I'm going to watch it because of all the problems you've had with all the production changes with directors. They had to do a number of reshoots, et cetera, et cetera. The first trailer, all you really do is see the Han Solo character and think, he doesn't really look right. And then I saw the movie, and I'll tell you, maybe it's because of the lowered expectations. Maybe it's because of the fact that I'm in a place where I'm like, well, hey, if Deadpool 2 could turn it around after some production issues, maybe this one can. Maybe I'm in a little engine that could attitude going into this movie, but I came out the other end, and this was a pretty solid movie. I had a lot of fun with it, and I think it went really well. I'm still trying to weigh whether or not I enjoy it more than Rogue One. I'd have to say yes, because, hey, the characters in this movie will last a lot longer in your mind than the ones that they just killed off at the end of Rogue One, unless you're K2SO, because K2SO is awesome. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I sit, dude.
You're going to put me in, and if any, I mean, it's been a running joke on the show that you really liked Rogue One, and I thought it was mediocre. You're going to put me in a position to argue in favor of Rogue One over this, because Rogue One is a far better film than Solo. Let me get the pun out of the way first. I think that we both can agree that going into this film, the title perfectly clarified our expectations.
How did it exemplify our expectations?
They were so low.
Hey, look, you got that joke to Lando this time. I got to do it twice. I feel so good. Moving on.
I'm done. I'm done.
About?
I mean, okay. I think that we, based on all that, I think that there is one area that we both can agree on, that it was better than The Last Jedi.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, right. And even then, you know, I like it a hair better than The Last Jedi. I did have a lot of issues with the film. Now, my first walking out of the theater, I thought it was mediocre. At best, I was leaning towards like a solid 2.5 out of 5. And I sat down. I started writing my reviews, and whenever I write my reviews, I especially for film, because any reviewer, any critic is going to tell you that the hardest review for them to write is going to be a review that is mediocre. It's not great. It's not bad. Of course, the bad ones are always more fun to write, but you know, the one that's right in the middle. And the way that I kind of solve that issue is I always just list out pros and cons of the film. So overall, you know, weed out the nitpicks and kind of focus on the main issues. And as I was writing this one, by the time I got through page 2 of all the issues I had, I realized that maybe my initial impression of the film wasn't as strong as a 2.5. And let's get a few things out of the way first.
Yeah, let's do that, because I'm very confused on how you could be taking this huge a dump on this.
It's not that huge of a dump. I'm giving it a 2 out of 5, and I don't consider that a huge dump. If you got into the 1 range, then this is a stomach ache. It's not it hasn't reached that end yet.
Oh my God, That's awesome. I think. Well, I'll say this for the moment: putting it below 2.5 is a little too stringent, but it wouldn't be the first time you've been too stringent. I'm just saying.
I quite the opposite. I feel like I'm very optimistic at first with a lot of movies because I want to go every movie that I go to see. I want to go in. I want to like it. You know, I'm not going in with the expectation of liking it, but I go in wanting to have a good time because that's what going to the cinema is all about. I think the overall question that I have walking out of this film, and this is perhaps a far bigger topic than this film itself, is Star Wars special anymore? The biggest issue that Star Wars in general has had, and a lot of the pushback it has had over the last couple of years especially, is the oversaturation in the market. Before then, you know, obviously in the first wave of Star Wars films, they were released at 3-year intervals. Decades passed. Before we get into it, I am not advocating that we wait decades in between films, all right? But then the prequels... Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. That's good.
The prequels came out, once again, 3-year intervals, etc. It gave not only the producers of the films time to, you know, I don't think it's a good fight for the prequels, although they did improve as by the time they got to the third one. But it's still, there was buildup. There was some, you know, there was buildup in anticipation for these films. And at this particular point, not only are they coming out every year, it's been 5 freaking months since the last one. And the last one is definitely, I don't think anybody, even proponents of the film, can disagree with the fact that it was the most contentious Star Wars film ever. I consider the issues behind the scenes, the switching up of directors getting fired by 2 out of these 4 movies, 3 of the 5 if you include episode 9. It really feels that this is anything special anymore, that it's a product that's being pushed out. Yes, every single film that ever exists is by its own definition a product, but this is it just feels much, much more blatant.
Here's what I'm confused about. First of all, for these people who want to try to keep telling me that the Star Wars movies are great movies, no, they're not. None of the Star Wars movies are great movies. None of them are all-time great, period. No, get the bleep out of my face with Empire. It's good, not great. There's a difference, okay? There's always going to be a mystique about the Star Wars movies, and that's not going to go away unless, I mean, you think you're oversaturated now. The problem is they still keep coming back for more, dude. Okay, that's the reason why while somebody like you who has a wide range and palette of movies, okay, in your view and admiration, it may seem oversaturated to you, but do not underestimate the power of the nerd, my friend.
I have 2 arguments for you, man. This film is poised as of the moment to be the lowest opening of any Star Wars film ever.
Right, it came out right behind Deadpool. Give me a break.
Deadpool is not the one affecting this. Most of the people a lot of the people that are staying away from this film are staying away from it for a number of reasons. A lot of them is because they feel burned from the last film.
And that's this film's fault? That's awesome.
And Deadpool 2 isn't the reason that people aren't going to see Star Wars, a Star Wars film, because it itself had like a 60%, 67% drop. So in this weekend, people weren't even seeing Deadpool, and there is another film that drove people there.
Compared to what? Listen, don't make this political. If you're going to throw numbers out here, you better back them somehow. If you're going to talk to a data guy here, 67% drop compared to what? Compared to the first Deadpool?
Compared from first week box office to the second week box office, there's a 67% drop, and a 67% drop when it comes to week box office from a first week to a second week is huge. It is debilitating, that kind of drop. And if you want numbers, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay, well that just wasn't clear. That's all I'm. Well, see, that's the thing, man. If you don't buy that that Deadpool 2 was the reason that people stayed away from Solo, that's cool too. But I think it should be given a little credit for the fact that Last Jedi was in fact that divisive. People are still burned. People are more inclined to wait and see. I think that is certainly a factor.
I don't think that this film is going to rebound next week. I think it's going to keep going down, especially because it has had a generally, at least among the fans, a generally a poor appraisal. But I don't want to jump into box office figures and all that just yet, because I do take I do take issue with your overall justification of Empire, but I'm going to put that on the table for now. I'm going to put it aside because I would like to explore that in its own episode.
This has got to get clarified, okay? There's a difference between overrated and bad, okay? Great, not good isn't something that should put somebody in a psych ward, okay? And have these, have child or alleged child ruined childhoods be talked about by some, internet junkie. Okay.
First of all, anybody that says this film ruined my childhood, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you know what? Here's the thing. I'm not a big fan of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It didn't ruin my childhood. It didn't ruin the original films for me. It is what I mean. It is what it is. I don't want to watch it again. I'm probably for all this show. I'm probably gonna watch it again at one point. I'm sure, but it's not my go-to film. I always will have Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Didn't ruin your childhood. It just ruined your adulthood. That's okay.
It didn't ruin anything. It's just at the end of the day, despite the fact that I love movies and film is a passion, if you're sensitive enough to let a movie ruin anything in your life, then you are the problem. The biggest controversy behind this film would be Alden and Eldenreich's. Can I never pronounce his name. I always feel like I'm going to say Third Reich and I'm going to get banned from YouTube.
Oh, don't do that. Holy shit.
Performance. I don't think it was that bad.
I don't either.
I don't think it was great, but I don't think it was that bad. I at the very best, I would say it's serviceable. His weakest moments in the film, I think, are issues more so of the script than him himself. Yeah, and the same could be said for Emilia Clarke, who we all know is fantastic in Game of Thrones, and yet there are moments in this film where she came out very flat. There are some scenes of them together, and there's one scene later on in the film, and this is, I guess, a very, very mild spoiler, where they have a discussion about the good deep within, and so forth. That entire scene came out flat from both characters. And I don't think it was so much. There are some lines that they were addled with that will make Hayden Christensen, I feel your pain.
Let's not go too far with getting Hayden Christensen involved here, but I see what you're saying. Yeah. Oh, listen, bad writing is a signature of the Star Wars franchise. Am I the only one here that's aware of that?
Yeah, but this was written by Lawrence Kasdan, who also wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Empire Strikes Back, and he has had, both as a director and as a writer, has a certain pedigree when it comes to his writing. So to see that kind of expositionist heavy dialogue roll out of these actors' tongues unconvincingly, I mean, the cue cards they were written on probably came off as more authentic than what the lines that were being read of were. So that is a disappointment.
I don't know. Coming fresh off of watching Godfather 3, maybe I'm just too generous to it. I was not quite as burned like that. Yeah, they were sure not every moment is going to be life-changingly amazing, and there's not a whole lot here that is of super duper uber quality to where you're going to have an all-time great. And if you expected that going into this movie, you set your stone too high. No, I'm not saying you did that, Demos. Take it easy. But where I am is there was a lot of things that I felt like hit really well. While we were concerned about Han's portrayal in this movie, we didn't really feel like that he looked the part, but you definitely spotted in some of the inflection and delivery that, you know what, I could totally see Harrison Ford Han saying that stuff like this and delivering it very similarly. The same thing could be said for Lando. Donald Glover doing that, delivered it in a fashion that
I thought that he was good. I thought Donald Glover was good, and the scenes between him and Aldenreich were very, very well done. I wish he was in the film a little bit more. Albeit one side story that he's involved with, which didn't hit right, but we'll get to that later.
Then there's the whole piece where the exchanges involving Chewbacca were all awesome. Totally could see it happening a particular way. There was nothing in here that I felt like didn't make sense. Now, If you're proclaiming issues with execution, that's a different question. But for the most part, for a Star Wars movie, I feel like things held up.
Woody Harrelson was another positive. I thought that he was good. I mean, it's basically Woody Harrelson with a bit of Han Solo scoundrel in him. I like that. Lando's robot friend
L3
was obnoxious. I could not stand this character, man. We'll discuss this one a little bit more in spoilers. But there were some things that they did with her, and I'm not really so much going to focus on the social message aspirations behind some of the actions this character takes. Once again, there's an execution problem with her storyline that I had issues. Honestly, for me, the highlight of the film, and the only for me, it's the reason to see it. Although there could be an argument whether or not to see it in theaters or not. The Kessel Run sequence was a lot of fun.
The Kessel Run sequence was tight. I really liked the initial robbery. That initially
the train.
Yeah, I thought that was tight. I enjoyed that a lot.
That wasn't bad. I did like very much. I liked the opening of the film, and the impetus to his actual escape, involving, let's just say, a thermal detonator. And I'll leave it at that. Okay. I thought that was very clever. There were a lot of scenes in that opening which gave me a lot of hope. I think the biggest issues that I have with the film really start coming to fruition towards the end of the film. The third act is where a lot of things fall apart.
Well, and we've discussed this before. In a lot of movies, and at least you and I have both observed that this seems to affect my point of view of a movie more than yours, and it's not close. To show a clear delineation of raising expectation and then a delivery at the climax and a solid resolution, I really think you could claim that with this movie in terms of its overall narrative structure.
I disagree, and I'll tell you why. Because my biggest fear, and I don't even remember which of our episodes I said this in, but I had one specific fear about this movie that actually did happen, and we'll delve into that once again in the spoiler section. I guess before we even get to that, because I feel the inkling that I really want to start delving into spoilers. What were some of the other highlights and pros and cons that you felt towards this film generally?
Right. There were some things that I felt like between the Khaleesi and Han, qi'ra. I have trouble calling her qi'ra because I'm fresh off of finishing DS9 too, right?
Right. I know. I kept thinking the same thing.
But like that, there were moments where the two of them seemed to have chemistry, and others where they didn't. And the problem with having moments where you can be good is it makes the ones that are less good stick out more.
I thought their scene in, let's just say, in a closet was effective.
Yes, forced to agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That was probably the strongest exchange between the two of them. But for the most part, I mean, it's back to the same sort of things that you complain about in every Star Wars film, if you ask me. You know, there's a certain part in the Kessel Run where the ship flies somewhere where it's not supposed to. Why did the Imperials follow? There's no good reason for that to have happened, for example. You know, there's a lot of little things like that. But then I say to myself, kind of like with the Deadpool movie last week, right? Well, it's a Star Wars movie. They do stupid stuff, right? So, but what I'm going to say to this before you jump to the spoiler specials is, here's a fact. With all of the crap that we've heard go down, and while you and frankly you cited changing of directors and staff as a show of a lack of caring and a corporatization of this product, no sir. I think the movement of the production and certain pieces were seen as not delivering it well or correct, and Ron Howard eventually coming in, apparently maybe it was in his influence, maybe it wasn't, but all I can tell you is at the end of the day, with Opie up in there, we need to start calling Opie Merlin, because he said, "Higginus, Figginus, motherfucker," and put everything in a way where we at least got To your point, a 2.5-star film at the lowest, in my view. And certainly something that could have been an absolute abomination that would have arguably quite possibly continued the decline of the Star Wars franchise to actually give you something to be worried about.
Here's the thing. The fact that despite the fact that they had all these behind the scenes issues, because it's not, I mean, this to date, and you might be shocked to hear this, is the most expensive Star Wars film ever made.
That is shocking.
Because they had to make it twice.
It lines up. It lines up
You know?
when you explain everything. It's shocking to hear, but then you think, oh yeah, that. No, I'm with you.
He redid 80% of the film. The fact that it came out as strongly as it did is it's nothing short of a miracle. But the fact that they're having, and this isn't like a one-off, because a similar thing happened with Rogue One, you know, and the fact that that came out as strongly as it did, once again, a testament. But the fact that they're having these kind of issues is because they're rushing it to meet a goddamn schedule, which once again reiterates my feeling that this is an assembly line.
I'm not prepared to tell you that there isn't an element of that, but I'm not prepared to sign off that Star Wars isn't special anymore, dude. I can't do it.
I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm not just asking the question. I think that Episode 9 is going to be the defining turn. You know, if this is, for many people, this is two strikes. They better get their act together with the next film.
I'm not prepared to call this a second strike, and if you do, you're just some sensitive ass fan that just doesn't know how to enjoy himself watching a movie. I'm sorry.
You're referring to me or a general right now?
Generally. No, I know your problem. You're a critic. You see a movie like a critic, and that's okay. That's not incorrect. I'm talking specifically to the people that use the phrase ruin my childhood in terms to Last Jedi. If you're one of those people, even if I know you and you're a close friend of mine, I'm sorry. I'm taking a shot at you right now. I'm just
I mean, I don't want to reiterate the entire ruin the childhood thing, because that's silly, you know. But if your childhood can easily be that ruin, then I feel bad for your childhood.
Pause this video, go seek a therapist. That's all we're saying.
You know, or
My bad.
rewatch those old movies.
Oh, yeah, there you go. There you go.
Considerably less expensive.
Hey, and understand, yeah, it might take a little bit more time, but far less expensive. And then maybe you'll understand that Star Wars is not filled with great movies. It's kind of like going back to watching an old cartoon. Have you seen an episode of the 80s Thundercats lately? Here's a hint. It's bad. All right?
Don't bring Thundercats into this conversation, because we're going to go, have you seen the new iteration of Thundercats that's coming out?
I think I might have just triggered somebody.
I think you just triggered. Oh my God! If you actually go, and if you haven't seen, I'm shocked if anybody watching this hasn't seen already. But if you actually go to the YouTube page with that video and you see the like to dislike ratio, oh man.
Pool of ruined childhood, right? Anyway,
No, that just honestly just. I mean, I'm not a big Thundercats fan myself, but that just looked like shit. I'm sorry, that just looked bad. I can understand if somebody was a big fan of Thundercats, them being generally offended by this. I mean, I get it. For that, I get it. I haven't seen anything in Star Wars that I can ascribe the same kind of vitriol to as that. Jar Jar Binks included.
Ascribing vitriol. Now that's the talk of a critic, my man.
Okay, so I'm gonna share some positives on the film. I loved. Maybe this is just me. I love little tiny clever moments. I love it. I love the use of the Imperial March as as a motivational tune. You know, join the Imp. I like that. I get it's silly. It's silly, but it's not. It's silly with enough within its own universe and context. It doesn't destroy anything. You're like, I don't want to hear people say, so does that mean every single time you hear the theme somebody's playing it? No, come on, don't give me that kind of bullshit. I like that. I disliked. Here's I guess one of my biggest issues. This will be probably second down the list. And this is something that they with any kind of prequel, you're going to have this kind of issue. There is a certain checklist of predictability to it. You know,
right.
You know you're going to see Han and Chewie's first meeting. You know you're going to see him get the Millennium Falcon. There are a lot of things that we can discuss about this film without even really spoiling anything because it is goddamn expected. Han getting his blaster, the dice somehow over the last two films becoming a bigger thing than it ever really was, but okay, whatever. Some things unexpected. I wasn't expecting a shower scene, face-to-face shower scene. That was
now you're just clickbaiting. Can we get the spoilers?
That was weird. Well, no, I want to get to. I guess one of the things that I had, the biggest issue that I had was, okay, so you already have all these things that people are expecting. To top that off with a lot of character turns in this film that were just goddamn predictable. It just made the whole thing just seem blander than it really ought to have been. If you didn't see some of the twists coming, without getting into too many details with this, I don't know what to tell you. If you really have to go see it, I would say see it on a budget day at your theater or just wait for video. I don't think this is the first Star Wars film I'm ever gonna say it's not an opening weekend Star Wars movie.
Here's what I will say: if you were that scarred by Last Jedi and you need to be brought back, that Star Wars can actually be good enough under Disney's realm, go check it out. Otherwise, yeah, waiting on isn't the worst thing. But if you're that kind of fan, yeah, no, you want to get in front of this, you want to see it. I think it was a worthwhile endeavor.